For that, it really becomes evident once you start looking at how these detainees were interrogated, what was happening. Physicians for Human Rights, which is a doctors organization based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, released a report a few months ago highlighting that the CIA's interrogation program was also based on, or turned out to be an medical experiment and research program because of the way that they monitored the detainees and then with the way that they would later implement torture tactics, torture techniques. They would tweak it based on the way that the detainee responded. So for example, with waterboarding, they figured that with the amount of water that they were giving them was too much and led to some sort of medical issues, that they switched to saline solution. So you had to figure that out some way. They needed to figure that out, and they did that based on the research. And so the part that I find challenging in explaining this to people is that, at least in my experience, that people are willing to accept at this point in time that our government, that the Bush administration implemented a policy of torture. Yes, I can accept that our government tortured, but once you start describing experimentation, they're like, whoa, hold on there, that's crazy talk. I don't buy it. They did not do that. And so it's really, what we're doing is trying to, peel back the layer of what this really was, and what it involved, and how highly technical and well-planned and systematic all of this is. This was not just about, we need to get information because we are worried about threats from Al-Qaeda or the fact that there was some looming threats out there. This was really a matter of having psychologists present, measuring levels of stress, deception detection. I had written a report that documented as well that there was another taping system present in which psychologists would monitor facial expressions and the way that a detainee responded to these interrogation techniques, and also use that as data. So I would like to let Jeff talk a little bit about what went into this, what these experiments really were, perhaps some of the medical issues as well. And it's a really lengthy story, and trying to explain it into plain English, as I said, was the huge challenge. And I know it takes a lot of time, but really encourage you to check it out, because it's one of the areas that has not been explored enough. And I do believe that in the months and the weeks and the years to come, we'll see more and more of this, and it will truly demonstrate just how horrific all this has been.
I'm a psychologist. My training is in clinical psychology, not in journalism. So the degree in which I've been able to contribute in a comprehensible fashion, especially of late to a large extent, is due to the mentoring of Jason Leopold. And despite the difference in our ages, he is my mentor.
I'm 15, by the way. I just want everyone to know that.
Yeah, and I'm 40. So. What we're faced with here is an octopus, a situation in which a terrible evil based on the idea of having complete control over human beings in the name of power has infected the society. So that this is not just the CIA or the Department of Defense, it's university departments, it's hospitals, it's respectable doctors, it's professional organizations like the American Psychological Association, to which I formerly was a member. It's other departments in the government, like the Health and Human Services Department. I know you would like me to speak about the medical experiments. Well, I had studied a great book to begin with, if you're interested in all of this, is to take a look at a classic in the field by Jonathan Marks, M-A-R-K-S, called The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. The book is now also 30 some odd years old. No, close to it. And it details the history based upon thousands of FOIA documents that this man, himself a former intelligence officer, received, and about the MK Ultra program and associated programs of the CIA and programs of the DoD. And it is true that the Defense Department's role in mind control experiments, in their chemical and biological warfare testing on human subjects, their actions at the Edgewood Arsenal, experimenting upon veterans. In this story, I believe we reference, and I wrote a follow-up article at Fire Dog Lake yesterday referencing Operation SHAD, S-H-A-D, which used almost 6,000 Navy officials as human guinea pigs on nerve gases and other chemical weapons. The experiments that were done here, we only, I believe, know the tip of the iceberg. We know about detection-deception experiments, which are essentially something that you might see in any psychology department. You put a subject in a chair, you put a videotape camera on their face that's hooked up to a computer, and you ask them questions, and you record micro-expressions. One of the main professors studying this, Paul Ekman, is right here in the Bay Area, San Francisco State University. Many of you who may happen to go there or pass by can ask Professor Ekman what he knows about these experiments and see what kind of reply you get. The other kind of experiments are biological experiments, which have the cortisol research that Jason was talking about. Cortisol, of course, is just one type of stress hormone. There are others that were of interest, we believe, to the experimenters on the detainees. The types of experiments most likely were similar to those that were done for about 5 years or so far as I can tell, on SEER trainees, resistance to interrogation trainees in mock torture situations, who would have readings made before and after their mock torture. And the mock torture could be pretty heavy duty, if you've ever read Tales of SEER trainees and what it's like. Quite stressful. In fact, the research was said to be interested in uncontrollable stress, or in some cases the inculcation of learned helplessness, a psychological concept developed by a man by the name of Martin Seligman, who was once president of the APA. And you would take, you take samples of saliva, and you take blood samples before the torture, and then you take it at various points, and particularly afterwards, and you can examine readings of stress hormones and how they are, and other markers of stress, and how they are produced in the different subjects, right? This is science. And we're going to look at this data, and we have hypotheses. And if we don't have hypotheses, we generate hypotheses based on the data, and then we manipulate it further and see what happens. One of the main problems with torture, among the moral problems, from the torturer's standpoint, is that if you torture somebody too much, they can't give you any information, or the information they give you is bogus. I know we've talked about Annex B, is it, in the Army Field Manual, that talks about different ways in which you can trust the information that's coming to you. And the problem with making somebody woozy in the head or so desperate they want to die is that they don't always give you the right info, even if they wanted to. They're so out of it. And so at the same time, they want to, or maybe the reason that you're torturing somebody isn't to get information, but to produce a false confession, right? Or maybe the reason that you're torturing somebody is just simply to assert your power, Or maybe the reason you're torturing someone is because you want to turn them and have them work for your agency, right? Double agents, you've all seen spy movies. So, if you want to do these things, it would help if you're a torturer, in their minds, who want complete power, to know scientifically how far you can go with an individual so that you can control them without losing them. And before it was done as an art, now they want to make it a science. And the science says, if we know your cortisol readings, or if we know your the readings of other enzymes and hormones such as NPY, NPRY I think it's called, or epinephrine readings, or other testosterone readings, then we can figure out how close you're getting to the breaking point, and then maneuver with that to keep you in torment, at the edge of torment, as long as we can, until we get the purpose of our torture achieved. And as far back as 1963, which you can read openly on the internet in the CIA Inspector General report on MK Ultra in 1963, one of the primary goals that they talk about that they want to achieve in the coming future in terms of research is the development of telemetric devices. We've all seen Star Trek, right? Bones holds up the little device and waves it over you, and you know what's wrong with the person. Well, what if we can wave a device over you and we know if you're at the breaking point? And what they study is something called heart rate variability, HRV. And a study that was done in 2002-2003, run by the U.S. military, which had a important CIA scientist, psychiatrist, is one of the lead authors, Charles Morgan, who had a long-time association with special operations and SEER personnel, and had published other research going back into the early 1990s on stress and mock torture, dissociation and mock torture, etc. Did a 2-year study, and they developed a telemetric device so that they could measure heart rate variability, which is an excellent indicator of stress. I don't know what they do with it now, but certainly a Navy study that was done in 2006 showed that it essentially has become operational. But I wasn't able to find more information on it. So we have a problem in this society also with doing anything about this. Even determining the parameters of what's going on is very difficult. And I'm not sure how we do it. I believe that what Jason and I are doing, and there are other people out there working on this, some of them sitting in this very audience, who are, and the organizers of this event, obviously, working hard to try and figure out what we can do to turn this around. But I think that it is, so it is important, I believe, and I think that's why the work that Jason and I have done is so crucial, to understand that what we have here is not simply a torture program or an interrogation program, but it includes the full parameter of a kind of a state secret program that involves people from many agencies, including and people even outside the government, just as it did, frankly, in the days of MK Ultra. But they're not fighting, the godless communist hordes who they said were going to overrun America. Now it's the terrorists, the Islamic terrorists who hide behind every bush with a bomb around their waists. And there's to fight this, we need to know, we need to, I'm sure you all are, speak out to everyone you know, but it's anyway, it's something that's I think about a lot. I'm sure many of you do. Perhaps you have ideas or thoughts and questions. That's all.
I just want to make a few key points, but Jeff, thank you.